So just to start off, if you could just give me a brief recap of what you just went through, what you saw, and maybe if there's anything that surprised you. I mean, I'm sure you were kind of expecting the worst, but if there's anything that still kind of caught you off guard, I'd be kind of curious to hear about that.
So nothing really surprised me because I'll tell you, I've done one of these visits before to a facility that's actually like a building. And knowing that this was a tent city in the middle of the Everglades, I knew the conditions would be horrible. And what happened is a group of us had decided, you know what, we're going to go there. We're going to do an unannounced visit. We're just going to show up and we're going to see the conditions. And we plan to do that this morning. And somehow the state got wind of it and they decided to invite us instead. Obviously, when there's an announced visit, what do? They clean up, they ensure that the conditions are a lot better. But we decided to still come anyway just to make sure that we can come into the facility to look around. But what I've been telling people is this: a clean cage is still a cage, right? And what we saw, weren't even good conditions. They were horrible conditions. They were cages that hold 32 people per cage, three toilets for 32 people in that cage. The drinking water is the same unit as the toilet. It's a spigot that is like on top of the toilet. So you can't drink water if someone's using the restroom, and you drink water where people use the restroom. Three phones that are not on all the time. We've heard reports of a lot of them breaking. Uncomfortable beds. Um, the portions for the food are not good. And when we walked into the facility to actually see the cages, they wouldn't let us in. They let us stand at the door with the door open to look inside. And I got to tell you, man, my heart sunk. I mean, people were yelling help. Um, I saw so many people who looked my age. Like I saw myself in those cages. People. Then they started all chanting "Libertad, libertad," right? Freedom, freedom. Someone yelled at the back, "I'm an American citizen. Help me." Everyone was yelling kind of their story to me. Help me, I'm from here, I'm from here. Send a message to my family, and it was so much, and it was hard to distill exactly what people were saying. I showed up with a binder full of questions. We have our detention facility checklist in here. I have pictures of constituents in there. I have their stories, and it was, what I wanted to do was meet with a lot of them as well. We were unable and not allowed to meet with anybody. What I was told is I can request a meeting and come back and I can meet with any of the detainees there. So we're going to be speaking with a lot of folks. But leading up to this, we've been meeting with our local organizers, activists, families, attorneys to understand exactly what questions do we want answered. And we got a lot of the questions answered, but the picture that's been painted on the legality of everything is essentially this is a federal detention facility that is run and operated and built by the state. And so what that means is that members of Congress, we're allowed to come back whenever we want to do unannounced visits of the site, in which I will do in the future.
Now, that's something I kind of want to touch on because, first of all, it's federal and state, but a lot of the enforcement on site isn't government or aren't public employees, correct?
They're not, and that's the other thing. It's all contractors, and usually when you're at a federal detention facility, there's a very high standard, and that includes the staff. I'm walking around, and it's security guys from third-party companies. Not any different than if you go to a concert and there's like a third-party security guards all around. Those are the people who are running this detention facility in this internment camp. And at first, I thought they were just doing the parking, just doing the security wanding. But when I actually went into the cages, or I didn't go in the cage, but when I went to see the cages, the people holding me back and the people that were in there with the detainees were people from these third party companies.
And I mean, do you think that it seems like that would serve two purposes, right? Like that allows public funds to go to these private companies, and it also gives the government a way to point fingers and avoid transparency, like probably what you saw when you went to El
Exactly.
Salvador, where they say, "No, it's not us; it's this private company. We can't let you deal with them," as opposed to the transparency that you're guaranteed as a member of Congress.
Exactly. This whole thing is a huge moneymaker for a lot of people. There's a lot of people getting filthy rich off of the internment of these immigrants. These security companies, not just that, there's a private medical company running the entire medical operation. All the people that were doing all the processing are from some other company as well. There's probably at a minimum, four security companies hired at this place. We jotted down the names of a bunch of them. We have the name of the medical company as well. They couldn't answer questions about basic stuff, and they didn't let us go into the actual medical facility, citing HIPAA, which is just a load of BS. I've been in other facilities, and we're always able to go into the medical area. There is no HIPAA concern with going into a medical area at the detention facility. This is part of the reason why we really have to come back. There's still unanswered questions.
Yeah, I mean, oftentimes in those facilities, it's not even private to the person that they're doing intake with. So
Exactly.
I don't know how they could be compliant with HIPAA at all. I wanted to ask about, because you say there is medical. Other detention centers where I've talked to people who have gone to these internment camps, they've said that medical care is scarce. That hygiene is a major problem because there aren't changes of clothes, there aren't showers, and there's no privacy. Like the toilets, there's usually no walls.
Yep.
It's just 32 people toilets.
Yep.
What's the situation like there?
Well, first off, yes, that's what we've heard is that people have essentially had got one shower in the last 6 days. Now, when last night we heard from some of the people in the internment camp through their attorneys, and they had said magically last night they gave everybody a shower. They let everyone take a shower last night. Magically last night the food got a little better. This is part of the reason why these visits and legislators continuing that is really important even for the conditions of people within the detention facility as well. The other thing I want to bring up is they didn't show us the actual toilets. When we were standing at the door, I was brought up, the top complaint I've gotten from people are the toilets and feces literally being run out of the toilets on the floor. Can I see those? They
Well,
said, oh yeah, we'll show you them. We're about to drive to it. I said, well, we don't have to drive. It's right here. Just let me in. Let me look at that really quick. And they said, no, well, we have a new one we're going to show you for a new place we're opening. They would only let me see new stuff. They wouldn't let me see what was being used. And then when I asked them, well, it's right there. Let me see it. They said, well, we're doing it for your safety. I said, they're in cages. What do you mean for my safety? They said, well, they're gonna throw feces at you. It's like just crazy stuff to keep us from actually seeing what was going on.
Well, and even beyond that, it sounds like they treat and regard the people they've incarcerated as animals. I mean, that's how you would talk about
Exactly.
at the
That's how
zoo,
you talk about an animal.
Right?
Exactly. And even the wording that they used to describe them, they kept saying the inmates, the prisoner. These aren't prisoners. These aren't inmates, right? These are people who are being detained. And even that, it's like the little things to the big things that show the mistreatment in action.
Yeah, and well, in oftentimes they're not even being charged with any crimes. I know you mentioned earlier they're not even being put in the same processing system as our court system, so that they can avoid being in the courts. Can you tell me like a little bit more about?
What we're seeing happen, and this is outside of this center as well, across the state of Florida, is essentially someone is picked up for a minor traffic violation or like a small, very small civil thing, or maybe they're just picked up randomly. Once they settle that, whatever that is, with the state, they pay the fine, they do whatever, then they just disappear from the system because they're put into the hands of ICE. And when we were in the processing facility, we found out that the system that they're using to keep track of everyone is not the normal system that's used by the courts. They actually created a brand new system just for this internment camp in the Everglades. And of course, the whole reason they do this is to keep things off the books.
Right. Well, because they've said as much in courts that their goal is to dismiss any court disputes against anyone they've detained, so that they can deport them without having to bring them back before a judge.
Exactly.
Um, Now, I mean, you went to do an oversight visit, and they clearly gave you a sanitized version of it and showed you the model home
Yeah.
version of the cages in the tents in the internment camp.
Yep.
What you and other members of Congress are trying, sometimes succeeding, sometimes failing to be able to do these visits. What is in your authority to do with the information you get from them? What you've seen, you've seen some very inhumane conditions. Are you able to have these places shut down? Or if you see torture taking place, are you able to have it stopped, or is your power relegated to oversight and just seeing what's going on and relaying that to the people?
As of now, a huge part of it is oversight, relaying it to the people, but also there's ways that we turn up the temperature on it, right? I think something we really ought to do is host an ad hoc hearing with the oversight committee here about this situation, which would turn up that oversight part of things even more. Um, but Congress as a whole has the ability to shut this stuff down. Obviously, we know what the politics are in DC, but it doesn't mean we don't continue to show up, bring up this information. This information, right now there's a lawsuit going on in terms of this specific internment camp. Part of what the state is claiming is that the federal government has no role in what's going on. Well, I just left, and we know that the federal government has a role. I heard directly from them that ICE is calling the shots. So the information we get here helps with litigation. It'll help with legislation. We're about to go into another appropriations battle where you'll see us take the information we've learned from this to help shift what money can be used for. So, no, me as a member of Congress, I can't say I saw horrible conditions, let's shut it down, but I can use this information in the pursuit of shutting it down, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. My last question on that is just that makes sense that it needs to go through litigation and there needs to be a court process. That could take months, years. In that time, they're trying to keep people there 2 weeks maximum. They want to up the capacity to 4,000 people. By the time this
Yep.
gets revealed and shut down, there could be tens of thousands of people sent out of the country at this location and then at the hundreds of others they're opening.
Yep.
Is there anything that can be done to stop this from happening at a faster, more rapidly than waiting for it to go through this process?
Well, in the court process, most of the courts are slow, but not all the time, right? We've seen a lot of these injunctions and pauses on a lot of what's going on make real impact right now. Um, but no, no, there's not a thing we can do right now to stop that. And so what we have to do is take this information, make sure it gets out to the people, do everything we can to amp up the temperature, put pressure on the private corporations that are super involved. Actually, that's the big thing that can happen right now too, right? Put huge societal pressure on the private corporations that are essentially running the whole thing. Of course, politically, hopefully we can take back the housing into a place where we can, you know, um, actually assert some congressional authority over this. But this is a very tough situation, and especially the way that the governor is doing this as well. But people should put the information we're getting from this, people should take this to also put pressure on their local elected officials and members of Congress, wherever they live, to say, I don't want my taxpayer money used for this, right? Especially as we talk about the state of Florida. I'll tell you, one of the things I did while I was in there is I was having one-on-one conversations with a lot of just staff members who work with the Florida office or the Department of Emergency Management. And I asked them, like, you signed up to like help us with hurricanes, and now you're running this internment camp. Like, are you like, is this what you want to be doing? Are you proud of this? Like, why don't you just quit? Why don't you leave? This and that. Um, and everyone's just stone faced. I mean, the cruelty. It's not that cruelty is just the point. It's the strategy in what's going on.
There's obviously people who are very upset about this. There's also people who support it, don't know enough about it, or just vaguely are aware and think that it's fine. What would you say to someone who supports this, or thinks that this is the only way to deal with America's immigration system?
Well, um, Well, I would tell them, number one, putting people in cages is never the way to deal with any of the problems that we have. We have a broken immigration system. Donald Trump is actually making more, adding to the undocumented population in the United States by ripping away legal statuses from people. And so, if you want to fix this, what we have to do is work on building a real immigration system that works for everyone, that's humane, that provides a speedy path to citizenship for people who have been here for over 10 years of their life. These are our friends, these are our neighbors, these are our teachers, these are our people are part of our community, and that's the answer. But going into our communities, terrorizing our communities, kidnapping people, trafficking them to an internment camp, sending them to random countries, of course, is expensive, but it's inhumane. And it's not the way we should seek to deal with any problem. Yes, we're in this situation. I when people say I don't want any undocumented people in the country, I say, well, I agree with you. I don't want any undocumented people in the country too. So let's document them. Let's work on this system to help ensure that people can not don't have to live in the shadows. And now it's even worse because the this big ugly law has essentially given ICE more money than we give the United States Marine Corps. And what people should know is all this chaos you're seeing online, they're going to export it to your community and they're going to export it there very soon. So as your child is sitting in their classroom, they get pulled, their friend right next to them gets pulled from the desk by an masked ICE agent. As you're in, church and abuela gets pulled from the fucking church pew while they're praying, right? This is the America that they're trying to build. And I don't care what your politics are. My hope is that as humans, you can't be for that. And if you are for that, after hearing all of that, then maybe you're just very lost right now, right? And that's hopefully that's me giving people the benefit of the doubt.